Welcome to the Easeful Uplevel, where we talk all things conscious entrepreneurship, spirituality, and upleveling without stress. Together, Erin Tobias, our marketing expert, meets with Allison Borstad, our mindset expert, where we just get into the nitty-gritty of what it means to figure out who you are, what your purpose is, and what your next steps are. Our goal is to make it as effortless and easeful as possible, even when you're going through hard times. Our goal is to get our mindsets right and get our energy right so that we feel like we can attack anything, we can accomplish anything. Consider this your energetic upgrade of the day. We hope you love this episode. All right, we're back for part two.
Part two. So we had so much to talk about, we couldn't help it. Now we're going to get into some fun stuff. So last time was all about the healing. This time,
let's get personal.
I want to get a little personal. I want to get a little bit like in depth about like you, Alicia, and I'm really interested in your entrepreneurship journey because I know that you've been on such a powerful and spiritual one. And so I would love to hear from you how has it been owning your own business? Because you have like quantum leaped with the physical location and like opening everything up all within the past like several years. There's a lot there to unpack. So I'm just curious, like, how are you keeping yourself grounded? Are you feeling grounded at this moment? Like, how are you feeling? Let us in.
Right now, I feel like energy is coursing through my body. In fact, anytime I have like an extended conversation with someone, I can feel the energy coursing, and it feels like a grounded energy. Do I feel grounded on a day-to-day basis? Yes, I do. I feel incredibly capable of handling my life, more so than I ever did before I owned my own business. Even though things get rocky sometimes, like I know that one day I text Allison, I'm like, I'm not really sure what to do. I keep thoughts about like giving this up. It's really just a testament to like how impatient I can be, and to not actually like look at the bigger picture of like how much progress I've made since just October of last year. It's only like just the beginning of February. It's only a few months, and so much has transformed for me. So many opportunities have opened up that when I texted Allison that, like, there are some times where you get a little funky. And I think a lot of it has to do with like,
can we normalize that though?
What's that?
No, honestly, what's so funny, because I think about this too, of like, I think day to day I feel grounded because I feel like I have, the skill sets and a path and all that kind of stuff. And at the same time, there's some days where whether it's like a cranky mood or I'm dehydrated or I didn't sleep well, or I had like a really weird interaction with someone where the energy like just got weird. And like usually it's, to me, when I have those moments where I'm like, I feel like I'm on the verge of a mini meltdown, and they happen, right? Like still, but I think it's cool when you have the awareness, or like literally you're like, I'm going to text you before I actually let this,
well, 100%,
like go somewhere of like, yeah. So I feel like that kind of stuff is literally, I don't think there's any way to avoid it on an entrepreneurial journey, which is like literally the reason why I'm like, everyone needs a mentor and a circle of sisters and really good supportive friends, that like, and supportive partners, like all of that. Right. Because
it's literally like a cradle. Like, yeah. I felt like that when I texted you. I was like, I'm just going to like lay my head down here in Allison's lap for a second. And then you were like, it's okay. And you like,
I was like, don't quit the business. You're doing great.
And then that, like, it changed everything for me. And that was all I needed, just to like notice where I was. Like, I'm incredibly capable of self-evaluating in an honest way. And that is the muscle that you need to build in life and business. It's not about feeling perfect all the time. You're not going to feel great about your business all the time. But do you have the systems in place to serve you and offer momentum when you're in a stuck place?
It's like to expect the stuckness to happen too, because I think my response to you wasn't like there. It was like, oh girl, me too. Like I have these moments, right, of like, let's just throw it all away. Even though when you actually stop and like look around, I think I also like to have like this gratitude practice every so often to think about myself a year ago. This is usually what I think about because of the impatience factor. I am so future oriented a lot of the time that I maybe feel like I'm moving slowly, but then usually I look back a year and I'm like, whoa, what happened? And I think this is true for a lot of people who really commit to the entrepreneurial journey. If you like keep every day like chugging forward, you cover a lot of ground even when you're just like tiptoeing day to day. So I'm curious for you, like looking at what has changed for you even in the last, let's just say in the last year. What are some amazing things that have happened for you, whether it's monetary or not? Because a lot of times we look at that in business, but I actually like the non-monetary wins more in some ways, the abundance that comes. But I'm curious, like, what have been some really cool things that have happened for you or opened up for you because of the business?
Well, number one, I would say, is that it's opened up an energetic portal for people that are on the same journey to connect with me. So, for number one, for me, it's community. I don't think you can do this alone.
Mm-hmm.
Number two thing that happened to me was that I was made aware of the fact that all these opportunities are available to me whenever I want. Like if I want, I could just reach out and grab it. So I feel a little like just expansive, like always because of that. And number three is that I got my own office on like just because I was in the right place at the right time. I mean, someone just texted me one day and was like, so and so is an office space that they're trying to get rid of because they're moving to another state. Would you want to take it over? And it came after a period of time of establishing an office in my home. So I actually had to like create the environment that I wanted around me in a different way first. Like it had to be like a miniature model of what I wanted. And then the world gave that to me. And that's all about like shifting into the energetic place to be able to receive that, was making myself feel worthy of it every day in my life. In what small way? Just to organize my home in a way that made me feel like, I could see patients here. So
Yeah.
I think those are probably like the biggest 3 wins.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm starting to work. I just started to work with the Ayurveda doctor in Lakewood at the Ayurveda Wellness House. And so she is training me on some traditional practices that are not in any textbooks. A lot of the stuff I know is not in a textbook. It's been passed down from teachers from India, which is like super amazing. So yeah, just abundant opportunities.
That's so powerful, especially not only are you receiving so much abundance, kind of like in the tangible business way. So you have like a location and whatnot, but you're also receiving this knowledge, this lineage of knowledge is being opened up to you from different healers throughout time. And you're getting that opportunity to learn and carry on that lineage. Like that is so powerful. And I mean, what would you say to yourself who is just starting off on this journey? What would you say to her?
So it's funny because when I think about that version of myself that started out on this journey, I was like just wide-eyed and bushy-tailed when I started. I was so hopeful and I so knew. I kept telling my mom, I said, in 3 years, I'm going to own my own holistic practice. I said, in 3 years. Dude, I had no idea how I was going to do it. I would talk to Allison like, I don't know how this is going to work. But like, I just believed, even if it was a sliver, even if it was just a thread of belief that I carried through and wove into each day, it works. It works if you can thread that single united belief into each day and to take small, even if you're tiptoeing, like Allison said, action steps towards that. And sometimes that action step is to rest for a long time. Like you guys know right now, I'm on a little bit of a retreat away from the busy doings of life. And that is part of my action to propel me into like the things that are going to happen for me this year.
Amazing.
Well, it's so much like opening up space too, because I think this is the interesting thing. I feel like the journey for a lot of the entrepreneurs that I've met, and even my journey too, of like, I started my business while I was working another full-time business, and then I was like, let me see if I can step it back, and then set that goal of like, okay, within 3 years I'm going to leave this and do my business fully, which was terrifying to think about, to rely on myself for my own income. Didn't even know if it was possible, right? But it was like proving it to myself day by day. But I do think there is something with that of like, yeah, the it's scary, right? But you have to like open up space. Like you have to basically the old life that you had, you have to start to like there's like aspects of it that you minimize and then even maybe close out, or like especially career wise. I mean, I think this is like kind of the common thing. And that there's a lot of identity that goes with it. There's a lot of like feelings about safety, right? Which is so funny that sometimes we feel safer in a job where someone could fire us in a minute than a career that we pay ourselves and can do pivot at any moment, right? It's just like so interesting. But like this opening up space thing, I think is really interesting in your schedule to be able to do this and like do that again and again, and then to have the space to expand and grow, I think is like a huge part of this. And it's the gift that keeps on giving and giving and giving and giving as you keep like allowing yourself that space to like rest and heal and ideate and
the other thing I would tell myself is that even though you might not be ready, the world's ready to hear you.
I love that.
For me, getting on here and talking to you guys, getting on doing Instagram lives, I hate being in front of the camera. I am learning to love it and be curious about it. And that's part of this. But I would tell myself that, people want to hear you. And even if you're not ready, you're going to have to talk.
They are ready. And I love your Instagram lives, and especially your feature on Monday mornings, where that is just so powerful and so actionable. And you do such a good job of explaining like why we're doing certain activities.
Oh, thank you.
So it's better. We do need it. It's really interesting. And I'm so proud of you for opening yourself up to that and sharing yourself and your knowledge with us, because it's really exciting how much it really actually does affect the world in a good way. And personally, I feel the internet needs that. The internet needs people who are willing to show up and step into their authentic truth and share what they know to be true and share this healing. I don't see any other way that we can move forward if we want to continue to thrive. And I think people are craving this. There's so much negativity out there, and the internet's been built on so much negativity that we're at kind of a breaking point, in my opinion, where it's either we quit it or we step into what can be a more positive environment for us all. And I think people are really interested in hearing what the everyday individual has to say, like someone that they can actually relate to, versus hearing from these mega corporations who have also really controlled the narrative on a lot of this. And there's nothing more that they've controlled. I mean, health is like the biggest place where they've controlled the narrative, right? There's so much that we can point to the last several years around how this narrative of big pharma and these hospitals as well, and their bottom lines have really affected our autonomy and our choices and our ability to heal ourselves. That knowledge has been completely blocked from us. And so I think what you are doing is really powerful. And I think the audience is only going to expand and grow as the word gets shared. But it does take that person to step in and show what they know and to teach us. So really appreciate the way that you've put yourself out there, Alicia.
Oh, thank you, Erin. And I have you to thank for that. You definitely challenged me to get on there live. And I was like, Erin makes me feel so safe. I'm going to do it.
That is my goal. That is my goal. And what you said too about, just like connecting into yourself and that power. I know there's so much value in having community, but there's also so much value in having a community that reminds you to check back in with your own power. And I think that's when it really is the most powerful, because otherwise it becomes a situation where we might be seeking too much external validation and not really truly connecting in with our heart and valuing that voice over the rest.
Yeah.
So I love that the way that you approach this whole practice is that you are always constantly reminding me when we're texting of my energy and the choices I'm making to manage it. And I know that you really come from that place of empowerment.
Yeah. And you know what? I like to think of it as like, when we reprogram our narrative, we're reprogramming the narrative that the community around us has built. So in order to do that, you've got to have a new community to help you. I mean, we are like, there's one thing to need validation and move forward with anything you're doing, but there's another thing to have this like echo chamber of like positive feedback. It's only uplifting feedback in your highest favor. So yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it,
Yeah.
Alicia. And I can't really express how shocked I am either about the depth of the friendship that is available and the community that is available. I know for me, myself, I had a hunch that maybe there would be a group of healers that would need me to help them with their marketing and that I could be helpful in that way. But I can honestly say, like 6 to 8 months ago, I didn't hardly know anyone who was a healer and who was working in this modality. I think, Alicia, you were one of the first people I met in this area besides Allison and became really close to. But I can attest that the more that you put the intention towards reaching those people, like sometimes you have to build it first before they come in. But once you do build that environment, that community, that safe space, it's just exactly what you're saying. It makes it so much easier to start connecting with these people who are doing what you are interested in learning about.
Yeah, well, and I feel like there is such magic too when you bring all of these like helpers and healers and highly sensitive souls. Like those are kind of like the things that, we all have in common, even though we all could work with technically anyone. But I do think there's like something really cool about us all kind of working in the energy, I guess. For lack of a better, like that's the core thing I think that unifies all of us, even though we each do pretty different things, is this concept of like, I am going to empower you. Like I'm even thinking of what you do, Alicia. Like when I came to you also for like the Ayurvedic support, when I was like, I have horrible allergies. I'm thinking I have to go get allergy shots to get rid of this problem. And you're like, well, let's just try a handful of things. And it was so cool. Instead of outsourcing my healing, you're like, well, what's in the grocery store that you're buying anyway, or you can switch up some of these things, right? Like the timing of there's all of these things that you weren't selling me a gimmick or a product. It was literally, let me give you knowledge and like empowerment for you to be able to figure this out. And then of course, like that kind of thing too, even in the ways that we give each other tips or we empower each other, like it just emanates, right? In terms of this healing power. And so I think there's just something so cool in some of the work that we're doing in terms of empowering people who really want to heal or help the world in some way is something that it just ripples and ripples and ripples. And I actually think every human, if really supported, has the capacity for that, right? If they're no longer mired in like really heavy stuff, right? Which what do you need to do? Go to therapy, go to an energetic healer, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of work that I think has to be done. And I think all of us have, like we ourselves were those like patients or clients, right, at one time, doing a lot of our own deep inner work. And then I think there is that point where like the student becomes the master. And I always joke with this with Alicia because, she was working with me for a while. And then so she hired me and then I ended up hiring her. Right. It's this whole thing of like, okay, now I need to learn from you. But I think there's just something so cool about unlocking the power, that is within all of us all along. And sometimes it's just the self-doubt or like nobody wants this. And that's where I think like these female friendships too, especially, this has been honestly my favorite thing that's come out of my business, honestly, is these like really cool connections and friendships with like, I didn't know you 3 years ago, Alicia, and now we're going on vacation in a week and a half. So, like it's just like really cool to think about these things of the like, there is something like you're saying, we don't necessarily want to rely on other people's validation. And at the same time, I do think like we don't create anything in a vacuum. There's sometimes hyper independence is actually the thing that holds us back. And there is something to having like a really healthy community behind you can only make it that much more powerful and stronger. It just amplifies what you're doing.
And you talk about hyper independence. That was the exact thing that I was feeling when I was resisting reaching out when I was struggling. And that's when I knew it's okay. Like this is you holding yourself back and wanting to stay stuck if you don't reach out. Reaching out opened up the energetic portal for me to move through it.
It's so fascinating too, because like just as you said, you unlock this moment where you're like, I can make money with something I create. I can make money doing anything. This money just flows in. Like there's all these opportunities that your eyes got opened up to. That happened to me, but it also happened to me with friendships. I started realizing like my friends can be anywhere. Anyone can be my friend. They don't have to be like in my office. They don't have to be my neighbor. They don't have to physically be in front of me. And there's such an abundance and beauty in that as well. It's like there's a whole world out there of people who are available, and the friendships can be so deep, and sometimes it might feel more comfortable even not to be in a physical presence. I know for me as an empath, it can be really overwhelming sometimes to be sitting physically next to a person or start a relationship that way. And so in some ways it's really advantageous for me to be part of a group where there's like a screen kind of helping to keep some of that energy a little bit like at bay, and allowing for me to show up more as my full self because I'm able to like ground in my own energy a little bit better without trying to like feel all the stuff that's going around me.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I think it's important to notice if you feel uncomfortable on calls, maybe it's because you can't do the thing that you're used to doing, which is be hyper vigilant and try to figure out what everybody's thinking. Because for me, I was feeling uncomfortable getting on Zoom calls because the lag, and it just didn't feel natural to me. I mean, the more that I've done it, I'm like, no, this is like totally so much better. But yeah, I think it was because I was like, what are they thinking? What are they thinking?
Yeah, exactly.
I can't follow what they're thinking.
That was such part of your process.
Yeah.
I know it was part of mine too. It's like, I was always like, what are they thinking? How am I feeling around them? How are they feeling? How are they feeling lack? How can I make them feel more supported? Like all that was happening. And so, yes, that's such a good point. It's so fascinating.
Yeah, it's so funny. I feel like when it comes to technology, like I think at this point the train has left the station. We better come along for the ride. But I like this idea of constantly utilizing it for good, not evil, right? And there's always going to be some of the people who do, use it for nefarious reasons. But I love the way that we're just rolling with the technology to use it as an as an instrument for healing. And it's funny too, even the Zoom thing, I even think it's really interesting and from a therapeutic perspective of like introspection and like what is going on in my body, in my physicality. And even sometimes being on Zoom where I have to see sometimes I get rid of my face and I pin it somewhere else, but seeing my face next to somebody else's face too, it's really interesting for me. Like I can even see in my physicality of like, oh, I just tensed up there, right? And I might not have noticed it because I usually do attune to the other person, but it's really helped me even attune to what's going on in my body too, in a healthy way. Obviously, you don't want to do the whole thing where you're like staring at yourself the whole time, which people joke about. No, but I mean, I think it's just really interesting though. Just even self-awareness building or like understanding what's going on in your body is really interesting. I didn't even realize how fidgety I was as an ADHD soul. I thought like, I don't fidget that much until I saw recordings of myself and I was like, whoo, it's just really interesting to see like that kind of stuff, and to get that awareness right as you're like moving forward in your journey. So,
if we want to work with you, how can we get a hold of you?
If you want to work with me, you can find me at Quantum Dreamweaving on Instagram. You can send me an email, quantumdreamweaving@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook, Quantum Dreamweaving LLC. And you can find me in person in Bay Village, Ohio, where my in-person practice is. And yeah, I love to do free one-on-one 30-minute discovery sessions with people. And honestly, some people get so much clarity from this and they start making huge moves in their lives like immediately just from 30 minutes. It's pretty amazing to see what just 30 minutes of mindful transformative conversation can do. Yeah.
Amazing. And then from there, if once you kind of have the consult, then you create a customized plan for them in terms of what they're needing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Amazing. Well, we are so happy to have you here. Thank you so much for your time and have a great
Thank
day.
you, Alicia.
Thank you. Thank you.